worrying that
Yeah, that's correct.
It's us.
like a co-host trying to elect that green skin.
We ready to start here?
Well, there's some other
Okay,
stuff
let's
that
get
we can
started.
probably talk after the meeting, but
Michael and Tracy have been very patient, and it's time to talk about cell phones. So, Michael.
Michael.
Oh, there he is. Okay. So, you want to tell us what we should do with our cell phone discussion?
Mayor, not so much tell you what you should do and not to give you a recommendation as whether or not to use a personal device or to have a city-owned device, but more, because I see that varies based upon the individual. I think my focus more is along the lines of just making sure that we're all aware of how we're using those devices. If we're using them to send text messages, things like that, if we're actually creating a public record, we're making the device susceptible to a public records request. So you can do that with a personal device, you can do that with a city device. You could actually own a city device, and if you're creating a public record with your personal device can still be susceptible to a public records request. So I wanted to shift the conversation more towards that direction of saying if you're going to intend to use the cell phone to actually create public records, then it may be something that you'd want to consider having a city device, but still be well known that that doesn't prevent you from creating a public record with a personal device, even if you own a city device. And then along that line too, the second part of that email, the last part of that email was the part that you had requested regarding having a city phone number, where instead of publishing your cell phone numbers, we could actually publish a city phone number on the website, and they could call, the citizens could call, leave a message, and you could actually check that voicemail and then respond to the citizen accordingly,
From
as
your
opposed
personal
to
cell phone, yeah.
providing a instead of providing your personal number or a city and cell phone number that they could contact directly.
Now, I was just asking if that was even possible to
Yes.
do that, so. Well, should we have a consistent way of doing this, or do we let it, is everyone okay with each council member doing what they choose as far as having a city cell phone or not having one? Kristen?
I just had more of a question because I don't know. So like the email is cloud-based. So does it still matter what device it's accessed on? Because I mean, in theory, if it's cloud-based, all the records would be stored like at Microsoft Office, regardless if I checked it on my work computer or my city laptop or my cell phone. Because even though they're on different devices, it's all stored on that account.
So with respect to email, if you send or receive an email, that is actually, we archive every email and can retrieve those.
Okay.
With the cell phone, I'm more referring to text messaging,
Yeah.
creating public records with that, because with the text message, we'll actually have to go to the device to pull text messages if you're texting council business.
Yep.
Mike?
And I think I got Dallas's cellular phone, which I probably used about 4 times before I turned it back in, because I didn't have the urge to have another cellular phone around and all that stuff. But then down at the WAM meeting down in Cheyenne in February, those lawyers were really beating the drum about this and saying that they didn't know how you really needed to have a government issued computer, a government issued cellular phone and that stuff. Frankly, I'm not all that worried about having my cellular phone confiscated or something. I don't text on it, and I don't. But they did kind of cause me to think that was something that we really needed to visit about. And I don't know, John, if you have any feeling about that, if you have looked into it at all, I would be quite inclined to follow your advice, really.
Sure. Mayor, Council, I think it's something that you need to be aware of because it is important. It's a law. If you create a public record, it's out there in the public purview. there are certain restrictions that would prevent that from being turned over if it's confidential or privileged, if it's barred by law, if we're talking about security or something. But texting is a big thing, and most of us do it. And a lot of the younger constituents that you have, and maybe some of the younger ones here, that's probably what they're going to do almost exclusively as opposed to some type of email. Emails really aren't a problem at all because we have that opportunity to go back and retrieve those. Text messages, though, if it's on your personal phone, maybe even if it's on your cell phone, I think even if it's a city-owned cell phone, you don't have that automatically transferred to the cloud. But if it's a city phone, and you can leave those on there, I suspect, until a point where you don't have any more local memory. And then I assume that probably IT can figure out a way to archive those if need be. Would that be accurate?
Mayor, Mr. Attorney, in terms of, we'd figure out a way to pull those messages off after a certain time or as needed off the cell phone that were considered or constituted as public record.
You know, the other thing that you might want to do, one other thing is just voice recordings too. So I mean, if your friends are out there and you want to talk about city business, you know, and you're leaving messages back and forth, not only text but also oral messages can be considered a public record as well. So you want to be careful about that. If you use the city phone, again, it's something you don't have to worry about. But I know that memory, particularly for voice messages, can get pretty cluttered. And so unless you have some way that that's going to be retained, you may not want to use it. So probably the better advice is to go with the city-owned phone and be attentive to that. Don't let your friends call you or text you about city business because then it's defeated the purpose. And then when you respond to a constituent, if you should happen just to get a message from your work, somebody wants you to call them, don't use your phone because again, then they have your number and they can text you back. You're in the same position. So for your own personal privacy, if you have some concerns about that, probably the city owner is the better way. I can only think of maybe 2 instances where we've actually had requests where we've had to kind of surrender a phone for examination since I've been here. So it doesn't happen very often, but it sure could.
Okay.
If I continue to use my phone, the only thing that they can go and check through it or look through would be text messages between me, a citizen, or me, this group, as far as like what's going on with my handicapped sister, if I text her or whatever, that they cannot release any information. They can't touch that. Is that anything else on that phone that I might, a friend that's just bullcrap it, they can't use that, they can't touch that. Would that be correct, or they can look through everything you possibly have?
Obviously, it's not a public record if it's with your sister or with just a friend. You're not talking about city business. The question would be if you're talking with a friend sometimes about city business and sometimes you're just BSing. They're probably going to say, well, you know, we know that you've been talking with your friend about this city business. We think a judge ought to make a determination about your objection that this is just not a public record. So we want a judge or a common person on Cheyenne, this ombudsman who's going to be appointed by the governor to make a determination about that. So again, you're right. It shouldn't go to the public purview, but you may have to turn it over to a judge just to make that initial threshold decision.
Just assume it will.
Some of you have your cell phones listed. I know you said that, Chris. Have you received text messages from citizens using your cell phones?
No, I haven't ever received a text message. I've received phone calls. And text messages, you know, among this group have been restricted to pretty much are you available for a phone call or something like that. So I've never gotten a text from a citizen. I've got phone calls from citizens. And it's out there, so mine's still gonna be that way. If I were issued another phone, it would just make sense if you're gonna subpoena the contents of the city phone. It'd certainly hit my phone too because it's published. So I know mine's vulnerable for that. It's there's nothing nefarious in it, so it's really not gonna be that big a deal.
I just wanna make sure that whatever we make available to council members is something they're comfortable with, and that whatever exposure that we have, everybody understands what it is and is okay with it. Ray?
This is a question for Carter. Carter, when we did the last time when we had phones, was it a big headache? Was that a big headache for you guys to keep track of the bills, to do all that stuff?
Mr. Mayor, Council, I wouldn't say it was a big headache.
Okay. And was it expensive?
Yes.
It did cost more. Yeah, it definitely costed more. But in terms of the expense of employee time and that kind of thing, I wouldn't call it significant.
Okay.
It was really more of the issue that nobody was using them. Cause I remember you and Kaneen had phones, and I would call your city phone, and you weren't checking that. So, I know that's what's recommended.
Well, Mr. Mayor, a slightly different wrinkle on this, that, you know, say for instance, one of us goes out, you know, somebody calls and says, well, I have a problem here at 12th and Beverly. Blah, 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 blah. So you go out there and you take your cellular phone and you click a picture of it. And, you know, you don't make an exhibit of it in a meeting or anything like that. You know, what about those kind of things?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I would defer to this attorney.
Yeah, any type of physical record that you make, again, whether it's oral, visual, it's going to be subject to a public records request. So that would in fact have to be turned over and would probably be a public record. So unless it fell within some type of a security exception or something like that, that would be part of it. So again, if you take those photographs, I think on your own, on city issued film, and that would again be their memory that could be archived to for years out, as opposed to you trying to retain that on your own phone. There was one other thing that came up, and Chief McPeters reminded me of it. If you use your private phones too, remember a lot of those phone companies now, the cellular phones, will still put on there the phone call that originated into your phone, or the phone number that you called from that phone, and the duration of the call, and or the text to the data that's used. So again, that might give some attorney or someone additional things to examine and query you about. Whether or not they ever became a public record would just depend on the contents.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Henley, pursuant to some of the points that have been made in this discussion, does the issuance of a city-issued cell phone guarantee the insulation, if you will, of a private cell phone from a subpoena action?
It does not. Again, you know, they could subpoena that and make the public records request for Councilman Friel's private cell phone records as it pertain to this particular transaction or event. We can make the statement, well, there are no public records on it. They say, well, we just don't believe that because we know that Councilman Friel knows one of the witnesses there, so we want to make sure that's not the case. We can, at least make a request to a district court or to the ombudsman that the phone should be examined to make sure that there are no public records on it. There would have to be potentially a third-party examination, which would usually be what's known as in camera, basically out of the public side. We'll have to turn over non-public records. We don't have elected rights.
Thank you, John. You know, I think we're gonna have to either decide to schedule other time to talk about this, or just leave it be and live with the situation the way it is. Preferences?
Live with the way it is.
You don't need to buy me one.
I don't think anybody wants another cell phone.
Oh,
If
and
you
it
want
doesn't-
one,
it
keep
doesn't
it. If you don't, turn it in. This.
Yeah, and I mean, to some degree, they're gonna be your public phone one or the other, so,
Personal
or personal,
preference,
sorry,
like-
personal phone.
Like the other one did.
Okay. If everybody's okay, we'll just kind of leave it as it is and not ask for separate phones, and whatever exposure we have, we have.
A very brief related but different question. With reference to emails, going in and deleting emails off of my tablet, that's not a problem because they're still on the city server, is that correct?
Mayor, Councilman, yes, that is correct. We have those archived, every email sent and received to your city account.
And so it sounds like as much as possible, we should use email. I mean, there's times that if you're late for a meeting, you're just gonna use text because you want to let somebody know. But a lot of what we communicate can be done via email.
And there's no problem with trashing those and clearing out that big long list so that we don't have.
There is none.
You're saying they disappear, but they're not gone.
Yeah.
Although we were
Disappear.
given instructions at one point not to delete those, but it never made sense to me because they are being archived.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on then. We gotta do bid opening. So, what's the drill? I just open these up and read them off to people?
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I set the table just a hair?
Oh, okay.
We did issue a memo that we outlined the process by which we would open these tonight at the
Yeah,
mayor's
thank you.
hand here. Unless there's any concerns, basically what we're asking is that we be allowed to open the bid tonight and then receive your direction pursuant to staff's ability to certify a number of the requirements in the proposal process, which unless there are problems with that, will likely result in a recommendation in the work session next week to go with the high bidder. And that really is what it all boils down to. You don't have to decide that tonight, but we do need a little bit of space of time to certify certain things and then bring back the recommendation, which will again likely result in the highest bid
Okay,
being awarded.
all right.
Okay.
Just open up each one and tell you what's in there.
Yeah.
Been in the jar on Funkin' Wagnall's front porch all this time.
Okay, we have a bid
You're doing
from
yourself.
Chris
No one else
Vogel,
will date me.
and this is a bid on this is Fire Station 5 for $200,000. And we have a bid on Fire Station 5 from Bryce and Carrie Flamang for $120,000. And documents. And a bid from Kenneth Mark Shugart for $153,500. And a bid from James Bengstrom. There's nothing else in here? There's no bid, just, oh, there it is, I'm sorry, 126,000, missed it. Okay, Peter Fazio bids $50,000 for parcel 2. Well, that is the former fire station, okay. And a bill from Rat Hole Drilling for $121,001. And a bid from Armand and Catherine Morris for $220,020.
That was Fire Station 5 again, right?
Yeah. And a bid from Douglas Haupt for $161,100. This is for the 12th Street property, or the Beverly property, excuse me, from Costello Companies. For $487,872. And this is all the supporting documents on that. And that's the only bid we have on that. Okay. Did I get them all, Liz?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so you guys will go through those and make a recommendation to us then next week?
Next week, yep.
Okay,
You
sounds
bet.
good. Thank you. Any questions about all of that? Comments? Okay. And we go on to a change order that I think Carter wanted to explain.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. There's a change order in tonight's meeting agenda that we wanted to give you some insight on. I'm sure you've read the memo and whatever, but we wanted to give you also the opportunity to ask some questions. And so, if it pleases the council, if I could defer some time to Andrew to walk us through that, I would appreciate that.
Your Honor, Counsel, I've actually got Jeff Bond, our architect, in the audience tonight, but it's a two-component change order. One's for a nitrogen compressor for the dry sprinkler system, which will help with the corrosion in that system. The other's for some dock levelers when we're moving product out of the new MRF. They come in at various heights, so the dock levelers will bring them up to the landing dock and able to load out product. That's a very, very quick description of the change order that's on the agenda tonight. And again, Jeff Bond is here to answer any more specific type of questions on it.
Questions for Andrew or Mr. Bond? Bob?
Our dry nitrogen system kind of the way we're gonna start doing things from now on?
It wasn't included in the original bid, Your Honor, Councilman, because it was relatively new, and I think that is the way that you're gonna start seeing dry sprinkler
Well,
systems.
it certainly would, it would be, in the long run, it's probably a good deal to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so it wasn't in the original
It was
plan
not.
because it was new technology.
Relatively new, yes.
Any other questions? Chris?
I understand the nitrogen deal. How was the levelers overlooked?
Your Honor, Councilman, I think they were intending to put that in a separate project, but because of the nature of these dock levelers, they need to be done when the docks are actually formed, because that actually fits into the actual dock itself, if that makes sense. So if we did it after the fact, we'd be tearing up stuff that we just had put in.
We would have done it anyway, just down the road.
Yes.
Other questions? Okay. Guess we'll just go forward and vote on that on the floor then. Okay, and so now we want to talk briefly about WAM resolutions, specifically those that are of interest to us. We talked about the general list last time, but there are a couple that we want to talk about specifically. Want to take that, Carter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We submitted for your review and, hopeful ultimate direction, if you will, with regard to, I believe we had 4 draft resolutions for you to consider. As was mentioned in the memo, there's going to be some items that will be of specific interest and probably influence, if you will, that the city of Casper should consider. We suggested the stormwater legislation. We suggest, or I should say resolution. We suggested a resolution designed around the idea of health insurance and being included in the state's pool. We also included a draft in there with regard to a direction you could go with anti-discrimination, and we tried to make it real specific and narrow as to how that could be looked at. And then we had one with regard to, what was the other one, the last one? Jolene?
Shared responsibility of tax.
Thank you.
Wow.
That was the one I
Thank
was
you, Bob.
lapsing memory on, that's right. Sales tax collections and the issues that we found with the system generally. And so what I would ask, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, is that you look at that draft language, see if you think it fits with regard to what the collective voice on those matters should be. I'm hopeful that we can get some direction on that request, no later than next week, if at all possible. If one or two of them need additional direction and discussion, of course, that makes sense, and we certainly would respect that too. But ultimately, for us to move forward as your kind of collective voice, that's ultimately what we're looking for.
I saw it. It must be in the information packet, right? Is that where
Yes.
those, okay. Because
Yeah.
I'm going through this and I'm thinking, I know I looked at it, but.
It's at least in the information packet. Yeah, that's right.
Or the pre-packet for today. It's in
I was hoping it would be in the pre-packet.
Maybe it is. I don't.
It is in the pre-packet, okay.
I know the one it's
One of the
not in that
packets.
I'm looking at right now, so.
That's right.
So there will be a preliminary discussion of resolutions at the board meeting in Cody that Carter and I will be attending day after tomorrow. But no final decisions. And the situation is malleable up until the June meeting. And so other changes could be made, or ours could be withdrawn or modified, or new ones could be added prior to June. But obviously, the earlier we get involved in the discussion, the more it sort of becomes entrenched in the ongoing discussions about what WAM should be advocating for. So any comments about the four that? Okay. All right. And I guess we've got a couple minutes. Any concerns about the agenda before we go out there? Questions?
No, I don't really have a question. Just, I think we've got, I need to have clarified what we did in the executive session, so I'll have to get that regarding some property acquisition, so
Okay.
I just need to get that done. And then I might come back and ask you to look at it again.
Okay. Well, we're planning to have an executive session to talk about personnel matters next week as a special meeting, I think. If everyone's okay with that. And then we will, if we want, we can also meet about property acquisition or do follow-up if we want to announce it for both then.
I may have to do it via phone.
Oh, because you'll be gone next week.
I'm gonna be gone next week.
Okay. Well, we can make all kinds of decisions then.
Yeah.
All right, we better head out there then.
Thanks, everybody.
I now call the April 16, 2019 regular council meeting to order. Would council members please denote your presence by depressing your yes switch?
All members are present.
Thank you. And all, just a reminder that our meetings can be viewed on cable channel 192. Do we have a brave soul out in the audience who would care to come to the podium and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Any? No one wants to step forward tonight, huh? How about it, Mr. Steensland? Sure. Anytime you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the April 2nd, 2019 regular council meeting as published in the Casper Star Tribune on April 13th, 2019.
So moved. Second?
Moved by Councilman Pacheco, seconded by Councilman Hopkins. Any amendments to those minutes? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the minutes of the April 2nd, 2019 executive session.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Walsh, seconded by Councilman Frio. Please cast, any amendments to those minutes? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve by minute action the April 16, 2019 bills and claims as audited by City Manager Napier.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Hopkins, seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Any abstentions? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passes.
Thank you. Now is the time we invite anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward and address council to speak. And please state your name and address. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes, and please address your remarks to me as mayor. Is anyone here this evening to speak to the council? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Dennis Steensland, 533 South Washington. Just a couple of comments, I guess. Haven't followed it real well lately, but I have heard on the news reports about the event center, an audit, which is fine, and it looks better, and also Hoganon. A lot of news about Hoganon. Mayor Powell's been on the news. Carter's been on the news. That's where I'm getting my news now. What I want to hear is when you're going to get some money back on that. You put $800,000 into the event center, and I didn't hear anything that said we're generating more money or we're not generating more money. And those are the numbers that I would like to hear. Hoganon, the same thing. Built a nice facility. Haven't heard that it's making us any more money. We're putting more money into it now. Are we just going to continue to throw money at these two venues? I agree that we need them and we've got to have them, but someplace there's got to be a point where they start supporting themselves. And those are the numbers I'd like to hear from council. I know the Hoganon is doing better than last year. I don't know what the event center's done, but if you put $800,000 in a facility, it should show some results. And that's the stuff that I would like to hear from council.
Okay. I'll be sure to address those questions in my remarks at the close of the meeting, and we'll give you as much information as we have.
Well, I hope I can get it on the news channel because I hadn't planned on spending all night tonight. Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Okay. They're fair questions. Anyone else here to speak to council this evening? Okay, we'll move forward then. Please read the consent agenda titles.
Establishing May 7th, 2019 as the public hearing date for consideration of the following 3 items. Amendments to the mobile vendor parking permit ordinance, the amendment to the International Fire Code regarding mobile food preparation vehicles, and resort liquor license number 7, High-End Hotel Group of America, LLC, doing business as Ramada Plaza Riverside Hotel and Convention Center, Casper, located at 300 West F Street.
Okay, thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, establish the public hearing dates just read.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Walsh, seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Any abstentions or nay votes? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the vacation of a portion of South Elm Street. Mr. City Attorney, do you have exhibits?
Mayor, we have 2 exhibits tonight. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Liz Becker to J. Carter Napier, dated April 2, 2019. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated April 3, 2019.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is one of those items that we are requesting your approval for with regard to cleaning up a legacy issue that we have been unaware of for years and years and years. Evidently, there is a portion of right-of-way that sits currently under the Natrona County Football Stadium that for some reason was not vacated appropriately eons ago, and we're just asking you to help us get that accomplished so that indeed we can clean up the public's record and have that appropriately taken care of.
Okay, thank you. Council will listen to public comment. Is anyone here this evening to speak on this vacation issue involving South Elm Street? Good evening, sir.
I'm Doug Tunison. I'm a facilities project manager for the school district. And we are asking to get that little piece of property cleared up that we were unaware of until about 2 or 3 months ago.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Tunison? No? Yes or no?
Well, you know, I'm a Kelly Walsh boy. Wonder if there's any way we could get that oil bowl back if we took that football field out.
Actually, it's a track.
The wheels turned.
Yeah.
Oh, it's under the track. Okay, the practice field then. Thank you for coming, sir. Anyone else to speak on this matter? At this time, since there are no others to speak for or against the issues involving the vacation, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance approving the vacation of a portion of South Elm Street between West Collins Avenue and West 8th Street.
The chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Hopkins, seconded by Councilman Walsh. Any discussion or amendments? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the annexation plat and zoning creating the West Casper Commerce Center addition. Mr. City Attorney, do you have exhibits?
Thank you, Mayor. We have 2 exhibits again. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Liz Becker to J. Carter Napier, dated April 3, 2019. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication is published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated April 3, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regard to the property in question, we do have an exhibit that you'll see here on your screen in a second. The idea is that this particular piece of property is being annexed into the community, and we're suggesting being zoned by virtue of the plat being submitted as a C2 classification. This area is over there next to the monument statue at the intersection of CY and Wyoming Boulevard, the northeast corner, if you will. This action would have the effect of consolidating these properties into one in order to prepare it for development purposes.
Thank you. The council will now listen to public comment, and public comments are limited to 5 minutes, and please no duplication of speakers. Is anyone here this evening to speak in favor of the issues involving the West Casper Commerce Center addition? Good evening.
Robert Bennett with Civil Engineering Professionals, 6080 Enterprise Drive, and I'm here representing the owner tonight to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Bennett? Apparently not. But thank you for coming. Is anyone else here to speak in favor of this matter? At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the issues involving the West Casper Commerce Center addition to please approach the lectern. Is anyone here to speak in opposition? There being no others to speak in favor of or in opposition to this matter, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the ordinance by title only.
An ordinance approving the annexation, plat, and zoning creating the West Casper Commerce Center addition and the associated subdivision agreement between the City of Casper and 7 Synergy Holdings, LLC.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve on first reading the ordinance just read.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Vice Mayor Johnson, seconded by Councilman Friel. Any discussion of this matter? I think it's a good example of finding a piece of property and putting business in an area that is essentially an infill area that needs to be filled in with something, and we appreciate you folks moving forward with it. Any amendments? Please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Thank you. I now declare the public hearing open for the consideration of the issuance of distillery satellite liquor license number 1. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 5 exhibits for this particular item. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Fleur Trimmel to J. Carter Napier, dated March 25, 2019. Exhibit number 2, affidavit of publication, is published at the Casper Star Tribune, dated April 8, 2019. Exhibit number 3, affidavit of website publication, is published on the City of Casper website, dated April 4, 2019. That was exhibit number 3. Exhibit number 4, affidavit of notice of conspicuous posting pursuant to Wyoming Statute 12-5-104A, as posted at 214 South Walcott, dated April 4, 2019. And exhibit number 5, liquor license application filed March 5, 2019.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Council probably recalls the effort that they recently undertook to create an ordinance accommodation to allow this type of business application to occur within our community. This is a satellite brewery consistent with the main license and storefront, if you will, located in Mills that brought some discussion when we went through this during the ordinance process. We're now at the point where the license can be issued, given the accommodations made in the ordinance, and with that, this business will be able to operate, which would effectively be a new business within our community.
Thank you. Council will now listen to public comment. Public hearing comments are limited to 5 minutes, and please no duplication. Is anyone here to speak in favor of the issuance of the distillery satellite liquor license number 1? If so, please approach the lectern. Good evening.
Hello. I'm Chad Pollock with Backwards Distilling Company. I live at 1244 South Walcott.
Bill Pollock with Backwards, 1244 South Walcott.
Good evening.
In favor. Just seeing if there's any questions on anything about it.
Does anyone have any questions for these gentlemen? Councilman Hopkins.
Not really a question. Welcome to downtown.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Councilman Friel.
The only question I have is with the satellite permit is only allowed in one location, correct? Per distillery. So by moving into Casper, the distillery is still going to stay in Mills, but you'll just won't have the tasting room?
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, you'll still have your tasting room in Mills?
The distillery will still be there, so only production, but we will not have the tasting room located.
Okay. Other questions for these gentlemen? Okay, thank you and good luck. At this time, I would ask those individuals who wish to speak in opposition to the issuance of distillery satellite liquor license number 1 to please approach the lectern. Is anyone here to speak in opposition? There being no others to speak for or against the issuance of this license, I now declare the public hearing closed. Chair would entertain a motion to, by minute action, authorize the issuance of distillery satellite liquor license number 1.
So move. Second.
Moved by Councilman Walsh, seconded by Councilman Friel. Any discussion? I can't let this matter go past us without noting once again that the people at Backwards Distillery create their liquor products, bottle them, ship them down to Cheyenne, purchase their own product from Cheyenne so they can serve it in their own tasting room in Casper, Wyoming.
Gotta love the government.
Does that make good sense to everyone here? That is the system we are living with, and obviously I think there's a problem with that. Any other discussion or any amendments? If not, please cast your vote, and please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
Good luck, guys. Please read the consent resolutions by title only.
Item 9A1, a resolution authorizing a contract with AAA Landscaping for weed mowing and litter abatement. Item 9A2, a resolution authorizing a contract with B&B Sales and Service for weed mowing and litter abatement. Item 9A3, a resolution authorizing a lease agreement with Boomtown Motocross for the operation of the Prickly Pear Motocross facility. Item 9A4, a resolution authorizing a lease agreement with Casper Shooters Club for the operation of the Stuckenhoff Shooters Complex. Item 9A5, a resolution authorizing a lease agreement with Mike Cedar BMX Parents Association for the operation of the Mike Cedar BMX facility. Item 9A6, a resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with Monson Janitorial Services, Inc. for the provision of custodial maintenance services for city facilities. Item 9A7, a resolution authorizing an agreement with Installation and Service Company, Inc. for the George Chaney Parking Drainage Repair Project. Item 9A8, a resolution authorizing change order number 5 to the agreement with Casper Building Systems, Inc. for the Baylor Building and Materials Recovery Facility Expansion Project. And item 9A9, a resolution approving a contract for professional services with the Casper Economic Development Alliance, Inc. for assistance with grant funding.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to adopt the consent resolutions just read.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Vice Mayor Johnson, seconded by Councilman Walsh. Mr. City Manager, would you like to explain any of these items for the general public and council?
Mr. Mayor, just one quick comment. Item 9A7 deals with the reconstruction, if you will, to some degree, of the drainage issues over there at Tanny parking lot. I just want to make mention of that because we have gotten complaints from users of the facility there, and I'm happy to report that it's finally getting taken care of, and hopefully will no longer be a harbor of ponding water, as well as the pertinent problems that come with mosquitoes and everything else. So we're looking forward to that being fixed.
Thank you. Any abstentions or nay votes? Councilman
Mayor,
Huber.
I do have one comment with reference to the AAA landscaping and B&B services. I would just point out that we had the big fuss last year about the building code. Okay, yeah, geez. Nobody wants to hear me anyway. But we had the big fuss about the building code and everything last year, that we were evil and going to tell people how they had to take care of their property. It continues to be a source of irritation and frankly lack of pride to me that the city of Casper steps forward and tells people, you have to mow your lawn and take care of that kind of thing. And if you don't, we're going to hire somebody to come in and mow it for you. But, as far as the building code goes, you can live in the most dilapidated, place that's infested and has mice and rats and snakes and everything else crawling in and out of it. And we're not going to have a building code that addresses those things for private residences. That troubles me very deeply because it tells me that we're more worried about what your lawn looks like than what we are about the safe inhabitability of the housing that our people live in. And so I'm compelled to make that comment. And you guys will probably hear me say that more times and get throwing shoes at me or something for it. But thank you.
Okay, please. If we can, we'll maybe comments in our closing. Any other abstentions? Could we wait until, we really don't have discussion on these consent resolutions?
I'm trying to abstain.
I'm sorry, my bad.
9A1, I will abstain from that.
Okay, sorry.
You are trying to follow the rules and like that, so.
Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With the abstention of Councilmember Friel noted, motion passed.
Please read the consent minute action titles.
Authorizing the purchase of forensic imaging equipment and software from Secure Digital Forensic Imaging for use by the Police Department and the Wyoming Medical Center.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent minute action agenda item just read.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Walsh. I think I heard Councilman Hopkins, seconded by Councilman Hopkins. Please cast your vote. And please record the vote.
With all members voting aye, motion passed.
And at this time, we allow council members time to bring forward relevant concerns or items of interest or reports on recent events. Councilman Pacheco.
None tonight.
Did I skip something? Did you get to that?
I think we got one more.
Yes, we just did that.
I thought we did that.
No, we did both. We took care of everything, didn't we, Krista? We're on track, right? Okay.
Sorry.
Councilman Huber?
I already had my rant.
Okay, Councilman Friel.
Nope, I just wanted to, put out there, PD that had 4 officers this, last week graduate from the academy, so congratulations to them, and 4 more bodies, even though they're not quite where they need to be on their own, but 4 more out there, so that's it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Just kind of response to Councilman Huber. The code that we were going to adopt would have made things illegal, like if you could smell your neighbor's barbecue grill, or if you didn't have a 60-watt bulb in your stairwell, just ridiculous things like that. I don't think it was our intent to not have a building code, period. But there was just some overreaching things in that code.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kind of another comment regarding what Councilman Huber said. I live in an area that we've got several rental properties that are infested by goat heads. I mean, they have killed the lawn. And while it's low, if you got a bunch of goat heads, these things just get tracked all over, and they're just terribly aggressive weeds. And get in your house, they'll scratch your floors, they'll go through your shoes. And you can't ride a bicycle there either. And I don't know that we have any control over that. I mean, it is a weed, but these landowners just don't seem to pay much attention to that. So I don't know if there's anything we can do.
Okay. Councilman Walsh.
Water Board meeting today. You know, our production's a little bit down, but everything is pretty much on track. We're working that initial budget just as we are here at the city. One thing that we'll have to consider is a failing HVAC system. Maybe it'll last past this budget period, but maybe not, or we might want to consider. So the problem exists now, and it sounds like it's more than just minor, and we're talking around $100K. So it's something to consider in our upcoming budget, as well as maybe if we can put it off till the next. But that is where we get our clean water from, so just assume that they were warm in the wintertime, cool in the summertime. And something that many people may have overlooked last week, Lieutenant Colonel Richard E. Cole died. He was 103. So he was the last surviving member of Jimmy Doolittle's Raiders. He was actually the co-pilot to Jimmy Doolittle. And it's unfortunate, but it's, I guess each year goes by, we tend to forget all those different things. But that was the first raid where we were able to strike Japan directly after they struck us at Pearl Harbor. Huge morale boost for the nation, and it was a one-way trip. They flew off of the Hornet, I believe, and crash landed in China. And they knew that's how it was going to end. So the last of the Raiders, Godspeed.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Lutz.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Councilman Bates.
Just a couple of things. One, that I do follow Facebook a little bit, and I've been reading the different comments by people, and this is more encouraging than it is discouraging between the animal ordinance and the abandoned vehicle ordinance, and then the miles per hour, the 20 miles per hour by the hospital, and most recent that I saw in Facebook, the police sign that tells you how fast you're going. I can't remember what it was exactly called that was reported. That most of comments, a lot of comments just sit there and say, instead of putting new ordinance, why don't you just, or the dog ordinance as well, just enforce the law. Why don't you just enforce the law? And what I find encouraging is there's citizens, many citizens out there that do want us to enforce the law, that do want us to protect them, protect others. One said, you know, I'd rather spend money on more officers than these signs. And I think that is actually encouraging and neat to know that our citizens want that protection and that safety and everything. So to those who keep putting that on there, thanks, because that's what I hope we will continue to do, is protect and serve. 2 points, Chamber of Commerce is having their 116th annual banquet on April 25th from 5:30 to 9 at the hangar. That's to learn more about what they do. It'd be cool for you people to show up to that. And then there's a grand opening on Raven Crest, the new apartments on Outer Drive that they just put on May 2nd from 4 to 7. I got to tour those, and they're gorgeous, gorgeous apartments. So if anybody's available, it'd be beneficial for you to check out what their Casper Housing Authority's done with that and others. So that's all I have.
Thank you, and we just received notice that the opening celebration for Ravencrest is May 2nd, I believe, at 7 o'clock, if I have that correctly. So, and just regarding the property maintenance code, I think that's on our to-do list to spend some time talking about developing our own code that would maybe not have some of those things, but still have some of the things that we know should be in there to try to ensure that people have livable conditions. In response to your question about Event Center and Hogadon, Mr. Steensland, we did receive the audit from the Event Center, and we are monitoring that subsidy closely. We haven't turned the corner yet on that, but we believe we are getting there. So the audit was clean. We just need more bodies in those seats, and that's really the issue. And so I believe our staff, could I be correct, Mr. City Manager, that we are cautiously optimistic that the trends are starting to move in the correct direction for us?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Steensland mentioned an $800,000 subsidy. I would be pleased with that subsidy. It's more along the lines of $994,000. And we are actually thinking that we're going to be making progress, and hopefully that'll be a trajectory that improves year after year after year.
The likelihood that it'll be brought down to zero is pretty close to zero. The reality is that facilities like this tend not to make money. They tend to bring money into the community, however. That's always the issue. On Hogadon, it's just too early to tell. The anecdotal reports are that we're in a positive direction there as well, but there's still some accounting to be done, if I'm correct on that, to find out really how this year went. All the anecdotal reports were positive. We just don't know if the numbers are going to support that. So we'll know. When do you think we'll know on Hogadon, Mr. Napier?
Mr. Mayor, we plan to be able to address those numbers a little more directly in the budget delivery that you will be a part of in May.
And the other thing I thought I would mention is, while I was at the CADA meeting last week, and Mr. Bates was there as well, and CADA's working hard. As we all know, they were working hard with our legislative session to advocate for getting a 4-year degree at Casper College, they were successful as far as the applied science program, and so there will actually be 4-year degrees granted for the first time, I believe, at a community college, which is a very positive thing for Casper. And of course, we know they were very active in supporting the Veterans Skilled Nursing Facility battle that we lost. They are also working to schedule a conference on telehealth that will probably take place in September. We know that our medical sector has been a growing sector for us, and CADA has been actively involved in trying to identify holes in our workforce that can be filled with programming that could happen at our local college. And so they've established those lines of communication so that we can justify the creation of those degrees and the training in Casper. The other thing that CADA is very actively involved in is something that's actually going on this week, and that is work on the opportunity zones. And so I'm just going to be taking every opportunity to make sure that people are aware that these opportunity zones were created by Governor Meade, and it's all part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was passed in 2017 that basically allows for individuals who want to make investments to make investments in designated areas that are economically disadvantaged and get a tax benefit for doing so. And so these funds are being created as we speak, and they're looking for places to invest. And so our job as a community is to try to convince them that this is the place to make their investments. And we're going to be working hard on that, and CADA is our partner in doing so, and we're I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll see some significant investments made in our area, and this extends all the way from Beverly Street to Mills. I'm particularly interested in the old Yellowstone district and seeing some projects kick-started in that area, since we've invested so much time and energy over the last 10, 15 years to get that area going. But we've got a long ways to go. There's a lot of properties that are vacant or underutilized that could be, that something very cool could be built there. So this is all happening, and I hope the whole community can kind of pull together and get behind it. With that, yes, would you like to add something?
And correct me if I'm wrong, one of the other things that they talked about was helping businesses that are leaving, but an employee wants to take it over but doesn't have the resources to, maybe the finances to do it, that they are looking at ways to establish finances for them to continue on with that business. So am I correct?
Correct. They're actually doing a sustainability workshop, so for those owners that want to get out, so that they can get out and have their business survive.
Yeah.
And then possibly, as you say, run by someone who knows how to do it but doesn't have the means to purchase it, then to provide some financial support for that. So thank you for bringing that up. The next meetings of the City Council will be a work session to be held at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019 in the Council's meeting room, and a regular Council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. Tuesday, May 7th, 2019 in Council chambers. The chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Councilman Friel, seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Please cast your vote. Please record the vote.
All members voting aye, motion passed.
Meeting is adjourned. How's that?
I did have